Across the Aisle segment tonight, Senator Elizabeth Warren caught in her own hypocrisy. A radio show host confronted the uber-liberal senator on how she could rail against the top 1% when she is a multimillionaire living in a $2 million mansion. He makes pretty good points, since none of these multimillionaire politicians who want to take our money and spread it around choose to do that with their own money. Watch this clip.
But you are part of the 1%.
Those opportunities are not available in America today.
But you are a multimillionaire and you have a mansion in Cambridge, do you not? It's worth north of $2 million.
I had opportunities because America invested in kids like me, and that's the reason I'm in public office. Is so I can make sure that the next kid
but
and
you're
the
part
next
of the
kid,
1%,
what I
and
am
you
is
rail
I'm
against
part-
the 1%. You don't see the hypocrisy there?
It's not hypocrisy.
You're a multimillionaire.
What this is about is whether you believe in opportunity or not. I believe in opportunity, and it's what I fight
You mean
for.
the three?
With me now, professor and author of Obama's America, Ian Reifowitz. Ian, good to see you.
Always good to be here, Liz.
All right, let me ask you, I found this completely interesting. I love, by the way, when our elected officials are caught on tape, not in their scripted speeches on the floor of the Senate or the House, not in their town halls, not when they're thinking so conscientiously of their talking points. I love to get them just a little bit more candid like this. But let me ask you, are Democrats like Elizabeth Warren, are they hypocrites when they talk about wanting to tax the top 1% and spread the wealth around when they don't voluntarily do that themselves with their own wealth?
Well, hypocrisy is saying that you're for the middle class, for the working people, and then stealing from them through Trump University, or stiffing your contractors who are small business owners, trying to pay them in vodka, and saying that you're for the average working person. That's what our president has done. As for Democrats and Elizabeth Warren, they are not against individual people making money. What they are against is a system, a political system, and an economic system that allows not people who make $1 million or $2 million, but people who make hundreds of billions to dominate the political system, with their interests being the only interests heard, the interests of corporations and the economic system. Again, they've got so much economic clout that they're able to dominate the system and suck even more wealth up the ladder, up the chain. It's
right, so
economics.
someone like Nancy Pelosi, somebody like Nancy Pelosi, she's not just 1 or 2 or 3 million. She's a huge, tens of millionaire. I think she's the heir to the sun-kissed fortune, if I'm not mistaken here. But, I mean, isn't that hypocritical, though, for someone like Nancy Pelosi or Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders who talk about wanting to tax the rich? I mean, I think Bernie Sanders said at one point he wanted to tax the rich 90%. Elizabeth Warren is constantly railing against corporations and the very, very rich, saying she wants them to pay their fair share. Isn't it hypocritical for her not to choose to do that herself, to pay, a vast portion of her own fortune into what she thinks other people should do?
Franklin Delano Roosevelt was one of the richest men in America, and he was a traitor to his class. He said of the financial elites, "They are unanimous in their hatred of me, and I welcome their hatred." That's what Elizabeth Warren is talking about as well. It's not that individuals can't get rich. They have to pay back into the system. Elizabeth Warren pays back into the system. I'm sure Nancy Pelosi does as well. But you really want to look at not what people say, but what they do, and really who they screw. And Donald Trump is the one who screws his own customers. That, to me, is really hypocritical.
No, I think you're missing the point just a little bit, though. When a politician says, I think you or rich people should pay an astronomical amount of taxes, when Bernie Sanders says, I think people should pay 90% of their taxes if they make over $1 million a year, and then he doesn't do that himself, isn't that a dangerous precedent to set? Doesn't that bother you to think that a politician who wants you, Ian, if you're successful and you make $1 million a year, to pay a certain amount of money, doesn't do that himself personally?
Why do they want people to pay that amount of money, that percentage? Bernie Sanders may be a little bit further out on the left than somebody like Elizabeth Warren, but that's fine. We can look at any of them. They don't want an individual person to not have as much money as they do today. One person, two people is irrelevant. They want to have enough money paid in so that we can make the kinds of investments so that people who grow up in a poor family like Elizabeth Warren can be able to go to college.
I totally get that. I totally get that. I've heard her say that 100 times, and I understand.
It's not about one person.
I don't agree with her philosophy, but I totally understand where she's coming from. I understand what her train of thought is. She wants the rich to subsidize the poor. She wants poor people to have the same opportunities that they would have if they had the money. So she wants the rich to give the money to the poor. I get that. My question is, why is she not giving her wealth to the poor then? If she says that her life mission is to be in the Senate to stand up for these people, if she truly believes with all her heart that the American people who make a certain amount of money should pay a large portion of that in taxes to help create opportunity, and I put that in air quotes, for poorer people, why isn't she following through? Why don't we see her doing that with her actions? And doesn't that make her a hypocrite that she's not?
Well, she's doing it with her actions. First of all, she's not talking about handing a check to poor people. She's talking about making sure that college is affordable. There's a big difference between giving somebody a hand out and giving somebody a hand up. We talk about the difference in giving somebody a fish and teaching them how to fish. Well, if they can't afford to go to school to learn how to fish, they're never going to be able to break out of that poverty cycle. What we're talking about are changes to a system, right? Elizabeth Warren pays the same as everybody else. She's not interested in having one individual pay more than other individuals who have the same amount of money. You're talking about structural change. So no, it's not hypocritical. That's what I'm saying.
She argues that it's immoral.
Not living up to it.
She argues that it's immoral for wealthier people not to pay those taxes, and she wants to change the system to encode that version of morality, her version of morality, into law. But she doesn't even live by that. Does she not think it's morality enough to live by unless she's forced to do so by the government?
It's not about personal individuals. It's about a system that would raise the money necessary to make our society have more equal opportunities. That we would have a society like we used to have when we had liberal policies in place where people could move up the chain.
Like FDR?
Now it's harder to move up the chain in America than it is in Europe.
Wait a second. Go back to what you said before. Are you talking about FDR and his New Deal and all the entitlement programs?
Well, we had a lot fewer of them under FDR than we do when they were expanded under LBJ, because they were made more inclusive. Under FDR, thanks to the Southern Dixiecrats, well, I don't want to go too much into history, but African Americans were excluded from most of those programs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's not exactly an example from our history of equal opportunity for everybody. Under the New Deal and FDR, black people were excluded from all these entitlement programs. Right. And FDR himself, I think, campaigned against anti-lynching laws. I mean, that's not exactly the America that I want to go back to. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, in my opinion, contradicted herself in many ways in this video. It was very exposing of her true viewpoints here. I mean, she talked about the fact that she made it where she is because she has opportunity, but essentially she wants to take that opportunity away from other people who have money and give that money to other people, and she doesn't even follow through on herself. She doesn't even give that money away.